Harihi Om. Sahana Vavatu. Sahana Bhunaktu. Sahaviryan Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastoma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So now we've had the council discussing on what to do. The Pandavas are back on that. They've been welcomed. Then the idea is that they should get half the kingdom. So then Dhritarashtra just speaks very, very shortly and says, so there's no further disputes. We will divide the kingdom. Yudhishthira Maharaj, he'll get Khandava-prastha, and they'll keep, and the Kauravas, the part that they're managing now, they'll keep. So Bhishma and Vidura looked at each other. No one said anything, because Khandava-prastha is an area that was used to be the capital of their kingdom. But because of a curse of a rishi, in the previous times, then no one lived in Khandava-prastha. There was no settlements, no villagers, nothing was there. And so then it is half the kingdom, means literally. But, so everyone's kind of like, oh. Yudhishthira looked respectfully at Dhritarashtra. He felt no anger or resentment at the unfairness of the settlement. His elders represented the supreme. Their orders should be followed without question. The prince looked across at Krishna, who was still smiling, right? Because something's going on if Krishna's smiling. Like we had that time when Arjuna kidnapped Subhadra for marriage, and then Balaram is, very upset, and all the other kings are upset, and they're in the war council and this and that, and everyone's fuming and putting on their armor and making all kinds of proclamations, and Krishna's just sitting there smiling. So Balaram's going on and that, he goes, Krishna's smiling. Okay, everybody stop, what's going on? What is Krishna? Then he explains everything like that. So there's something going on here. Yudhishthira was sure with his assistance they would be able to make the Khandava region habitable land, right? Because up to now it's been cursed, so it can't. But what the Supreme Lord says, that you can, it's good for living, it'll be good for living. With palms folded, the Pandava acknowledged Dhritarashtra's gift. It shall be so, my lord. Right? So then they want him out of that place, and they think if it goes to Khandava, they'll have nothing, and they'll just be little kings there, and it'll be, nothing. It'll be kings of a few villages or a village or something like that. And Duryodhana won't be satisfied still, but, it's not much to deal with. You can go over there and harass him and stuff. The next day, the king arranged for Yudhishthira's coronation, right? Because now he'll be king. With all pomp and ceremony, the prince became king of Khandava-prastha. Right? So you don't have to be in the place to be crowned the king. As long as it's accepted by the authorities, then it's there. Just like Anga must have been part of the Kuru kingdom. And then Duryodhana gave that to Karna to be king. So he crowned him right there in front of everyone. So now he's the king of Anga. So he goes there. Vibhishan.
He was also crowned.
Yeah, he was crowned, and he was on the mainland. Then he went back to Lanka. So it's a very standard thing. Whoever is the authority, because Ram won the battle, so therefore then he's made the king. After the coronation, the Pandavas arranged to depart. Having worshipped the gods and taken their leave from the Kuru elders, they left with Krishna at the head of their procession, right? Because Krishna was coming with them. The sage Vyasadeva also accompanied them as they journeyed to the northern region of the Khandava. With his assistance, the brothers selected a tract of land upon which to found a city, right? So Vyasadeva, because he's compiled all the Shastras, so he'll know the Vastu Shastra very nicely. So then he'll help them decide, okay, here's where you make your city, like that. Because no one's living there, nothing's been built, so then they'll make it all there. He performed the appropriate Vedic rites to invoke the god's presence. Then Krishna sat with the rishi and summoned Indra. So that's the things. Okay, they've done all the stuff that we do as humans. Like that, we go out there, we journeyed up there, we found a plot of land that would be proper. So the river will be in the proper side, the mountains, and everything will be proper. It'll be good. In other words, the Vastu Shastra is there to establish what is actually going to be prosperous, what's going to give the least amount of trouble. Well, when you don't follow and something's wrong according to Vastu Shastra, it just means it'll be that difficulty. So that's why it's recommended. All these Vedic things are recommended just to go smoothly. Varna Ashram, it goes smoothly. The Vastu, it goes smoothly. If I follow Ayurveda, it goes smoothly. They're all just made to make human life run smoothly so that you can actually put your effort into spiritual life, right? Because the material will come very comfortably, and then you have that extra time for the spiritual life. So then Krishna sat with Vyasadeva, right? And then summoned Indra. The deity appeared blazing like fire. He bowed before Krishna and asked, "What shall I do for you, my lord?" Krishna asked him to construct a city for the Pandavas, right? So it's not that, they're going to have to sit out there and they have no people or anything like that, and then they have to slowly and over, like years and years, and they can put something together. Krishna just called Indra and said, "Make a city here." They've already picked the perfect spot. They've already done everything. Now it's ready to start. He told Indra to sprinkle his heavenly nectar across the land so that it would become rich and fertile, saying, right? Because up to now, nothing was growing. It's like a desert and things like that. I think hardly any living entities or no living entities there. It's a very unique place. Saying, "So be it." Indra called for Vishvakarma, right? Because he's not going to do it. It means if you say he does it, he has his men do it. So Vishvakarma is the architect for the demigods, and so if he comes there and builds, has all those demigods, they all have mystic powers, and so easily they can be, like watch it happen right there. Right? Called for Vishvakarma, the architect of the gods. After being instructed by Indra, he began work on the city. Right, so he came, and then Indra said, build a city here. All around the site, granite walls rose to the skies. Right, because you want to have nice outside walls, but they made granite walls, because you can do brick and then cover them with something and this and that, or just leave it brick or use stones. But the granite will be, so it's very hard, it's very solid, it's very heavy. So you build a wall out of that, it's not going anywhere. Vishvakarma constructed white palaces and mansions whose windows looked like the divine eagle Garuda's outstretched wings. Massive dark gates that resembled clouds protected the city. No weapon could assail them. Deadly darts and other missiles were placed along the tops of the defensive ramparts. The turrets were filled with powerful men. Turrets means where you have the wall, and then you'll have a part where it means it's either raised and it's round so that you can fight in different directions, or the wall comes along and it goes out. Because if the wall is there, people can come and harass the wall, and you can only shoot down. If you have a turret or this going out like this, then from there you can shoot along the wall, so they can't bother you. And in the corners, generally you see those things, because then they can shoot in all directions and like that. The turrets were filled with powerful men, all highly trained in warfare and with all weapons at their disposal. So when he puts the city together, it also comes with all the people, to manage the city. The city was then surrounded by delightful woods full of blossoming and fragrant trees, right? So you come in and you plant all the, but they'll bring in, like even here, you can put in, if you have the opulence and the influence, then you can make a garden. You have nothing there, and you can call up these guys, landscapes, they'll come and design the whole garden and put in full-grown trees and that. So when it's finished, it is as if the garden's been there for 20, 30 years. Like that. So we see like this, he's putting in everything. Everywhere were lakes crowded with swans and lotus flowers. The city streets were wide and well designed, with pleasant groves and gardens between them. Because the streets it's like boulevards. You have the streets that people will move on. In between, you'll have a nice park. All the trees and that, people can go there. So you can move around, but people can walk and all that. So you don't have, like now, you have the main thing is the street. Then you have a little sidewalk, and the shops are there, and it's really busy. People are parking in this. No, you have the place where the vehicles move, and all that. Then you have these big parks in the middle for walking. So they're not small boulevards, they're quite big boulevards. Pleasure houses stood in the vast public concourses, and there were countless temples dedicated to Vishnu and the gods. So even in the parks, you have all these nice little gazebos and places where people can sit and do things and all that. So it's just all nicely set up. So the city parks and that are set up like someone might have, who is a very wealthy person on his property, on his parks and all that. So they set up everything like that. So that previously, that's how it was done for the cities. So it was very nice. The residents there would be very comfortable. The Pandavas' own palace appeared like the heavenly Mount Meru. Fully opulent, it stood in the center of the city, surrounded by garrisons of warriors. So Meru is right, you have the Bhumandala, and Meru is right in the middle, very big. So you have the city there, and right in the middle will be a big palace for the Pandavas. And it's also, because you'll have the outside walls, and then different walls, and then there'll be walls around their, palace and all that, with all the guards. So it's, nicely designed. Soon Brahmas began to be attracted to the city, right? Because if something's going on at nice, then people are there, then you need Brahmins, which had become known as Indraprastha. So it was in Khandavaprastha, so this is Indraprastha within the Khandava forest. They opened institutions wherein they taught the Vedic sciences. Vaishyas also began to arrive, hoping to earn money by selling their goods. Like if something's happened, then the Vaishyas show up, Kshatriyas are there, you need the Brahmanas and Vaishyas, right? Gradually, craftsmen and artisans arrived, and within a short time, the city was populated with pious citizens. Right? Because you're going to hear about, everybody knows the Khandava forest. Nothing's there. Then everybody knows the Pandavas. They're the most, special, and everybody would like to have them as their kings. Then you also have that, everybody knows Krishna. And then you have in the middle of the Khandava Prastha, you have a city come up that just nothing was there, and now suddenly there's a city. It was built by Vishwakarma under the orders under the orders of Indra with the instruction of Krishna. Who doesn't want to come and see what's going on there? So the word goes out, so everybody will come. Who wouldn't want to be living in this place? Within a short time, the city was populated with pious citizens. Right? Because crooks wouldn't want to go there because it's too strong, it's too powerful. They're not going to allow anything to happen, the Pandavas. So only pious people will come. It resembled Amaravati in the heavens. Ruled with justice and compassion by Yudhishthira and his brothers, Indraprastha's people had everything they desired. They came to regard the Pandavas as affectionate fathers. Right? So that's the natural form of the monarchy and the citizens, is that the citizens are like the praja, or the children. Even all the trees, the animals, everything is regarded as that they take care of. And then the kings they take care of like their parents. That's the idea. It's not about power. Duryodhana, now he's a bad king. That's what you're seeing. With him, you're introducing Kali Yuga, right? He's the man to, off the back of Duryodhana's kind of attitude. Now you can usher in the Kali Yuga very nicely. But previously, the kings, it was about means citizens are there. So this is the Vedic system: is that you have the populace. The populace, then, to be able to maintain themselves, that requires economics. So therefore you have the businessmen who lead the economics, and all the common people take part in that. Right? It means they work with them and this and that, and so that way everybody makes money. Then to organize it so it'll all go nicely and everything like that, and to protect the place, then you need Kshatriyas to protect the citizens. So the Vaishyas will protect the cows and make facilities for the public, in the economic way. The Kshatriyas then will protect the people and make the environment so it's safe, because only when it's peaceful, that's when economics flourishes, that's when people come up and develop. And then the Brahmins are there to train everybody, train everybody in the Shastras, in spiritual life, in their specific areas of knowledge, right? And so in this way you have the public, which is led economically, administratively, and with educationally by the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. And so that's what it's for. It's about taking care of the populace. It's not that one group tries to get in and takes care of themselves. That happens in the contemporary time. In the Vedic time, that wasn't how it is. It was that the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas took care of the Shudras. Right? They're the citizens. Out of friendship for the Pandavas, Krishna remained in the city for some days. Arjuna and Krishna were especially close, and they spent much time together. Draupadi would also take every opportunity to serve Krishna, and she became very dear to him, because she's a very, very dedicated devotee. So then you see Arjuna is very dear, and Draupadi is very dear. And the Pandavas in general are dear, and you see all these people in Indraprastha, because they are surrendered to Yudhishthira. Then they take on these good qualities and become devotional. A few days after Krishna's departure, right? So he stayed for some time, got the city built, it's all there, everybody's adjusting and all that, then they all happen. So you see a very quick time, then the whole place was established. A few days after Krishna's departure, of course, what's going to be fun is this is really going to annoy Duryodhana, what to do. A few days after Krishna's departure, the celestial seer Narada came to Indraprastha. After seeing the well-known rishi dressed in a black deerskin and with his golden hair knotted on his head, Yudhishthira got off his throne and offered him obeisances. He then presented Narada with a fine golden seat encrusted with jewels and personally offered him the sacred arghya. Right, so arghya is offered whenever someone really special comes. Like this, Narad Muni comes in, Vyasadeva, Brahma, spiritual master after a long time. It's not something you do every day. If someone's not been there for a long time, they come, then you offer the arghya. On a daily basis, you wouldn't do. So you see, as he'll offer here, but let's say if Narada stays for some days, he won't offer again and again. If Krishna comes, he'll offer when he comes, but not as he's staying. So it's just for receiving someone after they have been absent for some, a long time. Like that. King Yudhishthira watched the rishi's feet and welcomed him with gentle words. At Yudhishthira's command, Draupadi came before the sage and stood with folded palms. Narada offered the beautiful queen blessings and then dismissed her. Right, because he's there, and then so the king and queen go together. So she'll be busy doing it. He's done. Narad Muni's come in. So if it's a regular day in the court, then the queens stay and do whatever they're doing. They manage the palace. Right? In other words, the king manages the kingdom, the queen manages the palace. So she'll be busy taking care of that, because there's thousands and thousands of people to manage and hundreds of rooms and so many things to take care of. So she takes care of all that. But when Narad comes, such a special personality like this, then he'll call for his wife to come, to meet, get blessings and everything like that. When Draupadi returned to her quarters, Narada said, "This illustrious princess is the wedded wife of you all. You must establish a rule so that no dissension may arise between you over her. Listen as I tell you the ancient history of two celebrated asuras named Sunda and Upasunda. Sunandana is a brother of Nanda Maharaj. The two asuras belonged to the powerful race of Danavas, the celestial demons. They were both sons of Nikumbha, a deadly demon, a deadly enemy of the gods. The brothers were like one person divided into two. They lived together, ate together, and moved about together. So they did everything together. They always entertained the same purpose and were always equal to one another in both happiness and distress. So they were just so perfectly, attuned with each other. They never became disturbed by the other or anything. They did everything together. So one of them had a problem, the other one then was there to help. Or if it was a good time, then they were shared. Everything was done nicely together. By virtue of their long practice of rigid austerity, Sunda and Upasunda became extremely powerful, right? Because they worked together, so then they were confident, and now they did austerities, they became powerful. Having received a boon from Brahma that they could only die at each other's hands, right? Because they have such a good relationship, they'll never bother each other. So no one can kill them but themselves. And they're not about to kill each other. So that means, they're always looking for that eternal life, right? Always this kind of way of going about it, right? they felt free to terrorize the universe, right? So instead of just, okay, now we'll live our pious life and for a long time, until the end of Brahma's life. No, they always have to, they're powerful, they become proud, so then they have to harass. The gods could not check them. Finally, Brahma devised a way to destroy them. He created a woman of indescribable beauty, whom he named Tilottama. Right, so Tilottama he took a drop of beauty from everything that's beautiful in the universe. So Tila means like, small, like just a drop. And Uttama is then, the topmost. So all these drops put together is Tilottama. And so then, having made her, she was so beautiful that, when this time happened, all the demigods were there because they went to Brahma what to do and says, okay, I have a way. When they told that they could only be killed by each other and they're so good friends that, so Brahma said, all right, I have a plan. And so then Brahma gave the order to her to go and meet them, right? And so then, so to meet them. And then as she, took the order and that she circumambulated Brahma and the demigods who were there, everybody was just watching like that. So it said, that, how you say, they have the thing where Indra just developed 1,000 eyes so he could watch her go around. Shiva, as he's sitting there, then as she moves, and another head comes out as she goes here, a different head here, and that, so then he was Panchamukhi. Brahma, it said, that way he had 4 heads. In other words, point is, she was very beautiful, very qualified. So then, on Brahma's order, this Apsara went before the 2 brothers one day when they were intoxicated. Seeing her faultless form moving gracefully before them, both brothers immediately desired him. They began to argue, "This woman shall be my wife and your sister." "No, brother, I saw her first. She is mine." Right? So in other words, she is my wife, your sister. No. I saw her first. She's my wife, your sister. Like that. The argument became heated, and soon they fell upon one another with their fierce weapons. At last they simultaneously smashed one another with their huge clubs, and both fell to the ground dead. Right? So this is Narad's story he's telling. Narad concluded, "Thus these 2 asuras, although ever united and inspired with the same desires, killed one another for the sake of a woman. You should make an arrangement so that no such quarrel may arise among yourselves." Right? Because they work together perfectly and everything, but there's one woman. This was 2 guys, 1 woman, let alone 5 and 1 woman. Like that. The Pandavas consulted one another in the Rishi's presence. Finally, they agreed that they would each spend a certain amount of time with Draupadi. If any of them saw another when he was alone with her, there would be a severe consequence. The offender would have to go to the forest for 1 year and have no contact with Draupadi during that time. After the Pandavas had made this rule, Narada took his leave, disappearing before their eyes. Right? So when he leaves, he just disappears, like that. Not that he, has to walk out the door and he just disappears. Because in these things, you have the courtyard and all that. He just is just gone. After the Pandavas made this rule, Narada took his leave, disappearing before their eyes. Carefully keeping their agreement, the brothers continued to live peacefully at Indraprastha. Right? So now they've made this arrangement that because they'll each have their own quarters. And so then Draupadi, instead of just moving around and they'll hanging out like this, it means that they can all be together. But if anybody's spending that intimate time with her, then that means only that brother's there. The other brothers just don't come in. They just don't come around. They're like that. They stay in their apartments. And so that way then, when he's with one, then it'll be nicely that, and it's a set amount of time. When that time's up, then she'll be with the other like this. Chapter 13, Arjuna's pilgrimage. It was more than a year since Narad Rishi's visit, right? So this has been there. It's been, Krishna stayed for some time, got everything established. Yudhishthira Maharaj came. Krishna then went back to Mathura. Then Arjuna, Narada Rishi came, then established this thing with Draupadi. And so it was a year had gone by. And so, in other words, things were running very nicely. The Pandavas' power and influence had increased, and they had brought many other kings under their sway. They ruled with one aim, to keep the people on a path of piety and truth, right? Because if the people are pious and they behave properly, then they're going to be prosperous. And by that, everything will go very nicely. And if their piety and truth is there, then to that degree they can also practice self-realization. If they're impious, they're untruthful, then self-realization becomes useless. So that means by them being pious and truthful, they can both be devotional and they'll be materially prosperous. But if they're not pious and truthful, then the piety will be elusive. Opulence and facility will be elusive, and self-realization will be non-existent. By their own example, they showed how happiness follows a life of virtue. In everything they did, he accepted the guidance of spiritually advanced Brahmins. Right? So one of the first things Manu mentions when you're establishing the kingdom is the first thing you need, means you get everything organized like they did, and then you marry it, then you have to have your Brahmins. Right? So they have Domya, but then there'll also be more, because so many things need to be done in the palace and all that, so there'll be a whole crew of these Brahmins. And so then, following their advice and their direction, then they'll work. They know how to manage the kingdom, but they have to, there's always a point of what would be the best way for what does Shastra say, what will be the best spiritually, what will be best for the, the protection of the people. And so if there's some point that is not necessarily understood, then the Brahmins will give that. Because if you're managing it, sometimes you don't see all the options. But if you're not, you're sitting back from it, you can see everything very clearly. So that's why Kshatriyas always have to have Brahmins. Indraprastha flourished and became more than the equal of Hastinapur in the world's eyes. Right? So Hastinapur was like the capital of the world. Indraprastha became more than that. So naturally, what's going to happen? Right? Someone's going to get grumpy. Right? Due to his unswerving adherence to virtue, Yudhishthira became known as Dharmaraj, the king of religion. So it's just, with someone like that, the people of the world are happy to come under that kind of direction and rule and everything. Draupadi pleased her 5 husbands with her feminine graces and expert attentions. According to their agreement, each of the brothers was allotted time in which to be alone with her. One day it so happened that while Draupadi was alone with Yudhishthira, a Brahmin came to the Pandavas' palace. Standing by the gate, he cried out, "O king, wicked and despicable men are robbing a Brahmin's wealth. Alas, how can it be that in the kingdom of the virtuous Pandavas, the Brahmins are not protected? A king who takes his taxes but fails to protect the people is considered the most sinful of men. Therefore, great hero, deliver me at once from this burning anguish." Right? Because the taxes are taken to properly protect the people. Right? It means that the king will be, his facilities will be there, because unless you're maintained, how do you rule? But taxes aren't for just this and that. They're for maintaining the public. That's what they're for. So his point is then you have this, and so your system of protection going on, whatever it is, your police force or your warriors, they're not taking care, but you're taking the tax. What's going on? In anger and grief, the Brahmin repeatedly cried out. Arjuna heard his cries and called down, "Do not fear." Right? See, in the palaces, how they're built, there's a particular area. There's a small courtyard where, and a small courtyard and a special gate. It has guards and everything. Any citizen can come in that gate and address the king with a complaint. So it's always there. Many times there's a drum there, and then they come and they beat on the drum. Then the king or whatever, the minister or someone will come out and hear what they have to say. And so the point is anyone can come and get audience with the king, but it has to be that you're actually doing it because there's a real necessity. If you're just coming there because you just wanted to take a selfie and all that, then the guards that are there will, you'll be punished. Like that. But that's the point, is it's always there. So this Brahmin could come in. That's why he said he calls down, because you walk in from the outside on the ground level. The kings will be up on the upper level. Then they'll come in here, and then they'll do the needful. Do not fear. He went quickly to fetch his weapons in order to punish the thieves, but discovered that Yudhishthira was alone with Draupadi in the room that held the weapons chest, right? Because all the weapons are kept in Yudhishthira's place, because on his order, then they will fight. And so then he went to get this because, he's representing then the king here. And so he goes to get, but generally he might be moving around, Draupadi's somewhere else or whether this, but they happen to be together, spending time together. Arjuna hesitated. How could he intrude upon his elder brother, especially as they had made their agreement? But here was an afflicted Brahmin, right? So that's worse. If he did not protect him, then Yudhishthira's fame would perish and he would be tainted by sin, right? So now it's like he's famous because everyone's protected. Now, if this Brahmin's not protected because of their own personal family vows, then what's the point? Like that. Their first duty is taking care of the public, right? It means they as individuals have to be able to live their life, of course. So then Arjuna made it. So Arjuna could not stand by and watch his brother be accused of irreligion, right? That's the main point. He had to get the weapons, even though it meant he would be exiled to the forest, right? Because they have to go for a year. He felt that even if he died in the forest, it would be preferable to neglecting his duty. Okay. Arjuna resolved to enter the chamber. He had no choice. After knocking on the door and receiving Yudhishthira's permission, he walked in, looking straight ahead of him. He strode quickly towards the weapons, right? Because he looked straight ahead. One, he had something to do, and two, Yudhishthira's with Draupadi, so he's just going and coming out. He strode quickly towards the weapons. Yudhishthira smiled to see his younger brother. He knew Arjuna must have an important reason for entering, right? Because otherwise they have their rule, so there must be something very important. Arjuna then explained the situation, took his bow and ran out of the palace. Taking the Brahmin, mounting his chariot, he speedily pursued the robbers, right? So he got on his chariot, took the Brahmin with him, right? Because one, he doesn't know where to go. And two, then, in this way, then with Brahmins, then you could go and make everything correct and all that. Other citizens you may or may not do that with. When he saw them in the distance, Arjuna released his infallible arrows, striking down the thieves as they made off with the Brahmin's cows. Having dealt swift justice to the thieves, Arjuna restored the property to the grateful Brahmin and returned to the city. Yudhishthira greeted his brother warmly as he entered the palace, along with his other brothers. He applauded Arjuna for saving the Brahmin. Arjuna bowed before Yudhishthira and said, "My lord, please give me permission to observe the vow as we have agreed. I shall leave for the forest at once." Okay. Yudhishthira stared at his young brother in disbelief. What was he saying? In a voice trembling with grief, he immediately replied, "Why should you go, sinless Arjuna? If I am your authority, then heed my words. I was not in the least disturbed by your entering the room. You do not need to leave for the forest." Right? So, but we'll see how this unfolds. Because the point is, you can see with the Kshatriyas, when they say something, there's a vow or something. Like Kunti, she always says truth. She said something, it had to happen. Yudhishthira says something, it has to happen. Arjuna, they took a vow, it has to happen. Otherwise, no one will take anything seriously. When it comes to kings, like that. Okay, so we'll end here and see what happens about Arjuna in the forest. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sorry.